Someday we'll have a mantra mansion. Working our way up there. Be like on MTV Cribs or something. So I wanted to talk today about spiritual equality, spiritual vision, why that is so important. These last couple of weeks, I've been speaking at a few universities, and I was thinking about this word university, uh, college, where you learn and get education. And I was seeing that university actually comes from universal, which means that colleges, they should be providing universal knowledge. So what does universal knowledge mean? Material knowledge and spiritual knowledge. But these days, it's a little bit one-sided, so that's why you see society also being one-sided. And I'm just thinking and reflecting back to my early upbringing and childhood. I was pretty fortunate because I had really spiritual aligned parents. Like they were almost like spiritual pilgrims. So they would constantly be taking me to different parts of India. And India is known to have like a lot of holy sites, holy temples, holy villages and rivers. And just being so young and seeing that, it really made a dramatic impact on my consciousness. They say the consciousness of a child is almost like a sponge, and you really absorb those moments. So, yes, it was very spectacular, but I also saw a whole nother side to India as well, and that was the slum villages, the slum children. But what was really interesting to me was that these slum kids, they would always have the biggest smiles on their faces. They looked so happy. And then I was just thinking back to my upbringing. I grew up in like a very rich neighborhood, and I was thinking about the kids I grew up with, and they were always so angry and so depressed. And I was just thinking, how can this be? They have everything, and maybe they didn't get the video game on time, or little things like that. But this kind of made me just question things a little bit more. And I remember also when my parents took me to this really holy city called Haridwar. Have you guys heard of Haridwar before? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's near Rishikesh. It's very sacred because there's this sacred river that flows through it called the Ganges, or the Ganga River. And Hari, it's a Sanskrit word that means the supreme. Dwar means gates. So Haridwar literally means the gates to the supreme. So it was the first time, I was maybe like 7 years old or so, that I would literally see hundreds and thousands of people. Like every day, so many people would come and gather. But also, it would attract all walks of life. And so it was the first time I was also seeing people missing like their body parts and their body limbs. So I would see people missing their legs, missing their hands, missing even their eyes. I saw someone even missing part of their skull. And because there were so many people in Haridwar, there was a moment where I kind of lost sight of my parents. We kind of split it. So now I'm lost with all these people around. And these homeless, bodiless people, they started to actually slowly surround me. And I, as you can imagine, got a little scared at that moment. But they were actually trying to help me. They were actually trying to get me back to my parents. And I actually saw this same exact scene in this very enlightening movie called Toy Story. Do you guys know what scene I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So Woody is in the neighbor's house, Sid. And Sid is like this big demon. And he takes all these toys and blows them up, and they're missing like their arms and things like that. And there's this scene where Woody is stuck in Sid's room. He's trying to escape, and all of a sudden all these toys start surrounding Woody, and Woody gets a little freaked out. But actually those toys were also trying to help Woody get back to his home. So, just experiencing this, I remember there was a moment where I just like stared at my hand, and I was just asking, like, who am I? Have you guys ever done that before? I've said this story once, and somebody was telling me, like, I did that too. I would stare at my hand. But yeah, I was just asking, who am I? Am I just this body, or is there something more? Does it all end when I end, or does life keep continuing? So I was having all these crazy realizations at such a young age. And then you can imagine going back to the American school system, sitting at a desk for 6-8 hours, learning subjects that don't even interest me. I was just like, life, there's so much more to life. I need to get out of here. I can't really deal with this. I wanna get into spirituality. And I always remembered having this deep connection with divinity from an early age. I felt that divinity would be speaking to me through music. So what I would do is replace the word girl with God to turn love songs into gospels. So, if I'm going through something, I'll turn on the radio and, I would hear, "Don't worry, baby, it's going to be all right." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you," and just building that communication as much as possible. So that was really, that just kind of started my path and my journey. And then I also remember when I was 10 years old, my parents, they decided to throw this huge birthday party for me. My parents had a lot of friends, and they had like a big social circle. So they rented out this huge hall, and there was probably like 500 people there. And it was myself and my little sister. I was 10, she was 6, and they were celebrating both of our birthdays. And I didn't really care so much about the party. I didn't care so much about the cake, the games, whatever. I was just looking at the gifts. I was looking at the presents, and I was just seeing it stack up like one by one, and I was like, oh yeah. And I even remember, like, right before the party, my mom, like, when she was sending out the invitation, she would write, "Don't bring any gifts, it's okay." And I'm like, "Mom, what are you doing? Like, this is the whole point of the party." So, the party's going on, I'm looking at the gifts, and now it's like 11 or 12 p.m., and I'm basically, I want to go home, like, all right, let's open these presents. And my parents were like, "No, you gotta wait, like, we'll do it tomorrow." Like, "No, it's my birthday, let's do this, this is the whole point." So I finally got my way, and I started opening up each gift one by one. And I opened up the first gift, and it's like this Batman. I'm like, yeah, Batman's what I wanted. And then I open up the next gift, it's like Power Rangers, and then Ninja Turtles, and Superman. And I remember what I would do is just like go under the blanket for hours and like play with these action figures and just make these stories and movies. So I'm opening up all these gifts. And finally I get to this one present, and it looked a little funny. It didn't rattle, it didn't shake. I'm like, what is this? So I start to like slowly open it up, and it's this book called the Bhagavad Gita, one of the most ancient meditation literatures out there. And at the time, I was thinking, man, who had the nerve to give me like a book for my birthday? Like, who do they think they are? So I just kind of like tossed it to the side. But that book was always there, and luckily it had some pictures. So I remember just looking at some of the pictures, and one of them was called the Changing Bodies picture. Have any of you guys seen that picture? Mm-hmm. So it's a picture of a baby, then a little boy, then a young adult, teenager, man, old man, and then crumbling man. And then as the man's dying, it shows a baby again. And it shows like a spiritual force going through each body. And it's just kind of representing the cycle of reincarnation. So through these images, things were starting to click a little. But I would continuously try to read this book, try to read it at 10, 12, 16, 21. It never clicked. But finally it did click. And I think that's the amazing thing about spiritual literatures and spiritual knowledge books, that maybe at the time it doesn't make sense, but that book doesn't go anywhere. And when you're ready, then it will come, and things will be revealed. So when it did click, I was looking through all the different verses, and I came across this one verse that talked about equality. And it was saying how we should learn to be equal in happiness and distress. We should learn to be equal with our friends and our enemy. And we should learn to be equal with dirt and gold. And when I read this, I was thinking, okay, equal in happiness and distress. This might be possible. Equal with friends and enemies. This is a little tough, but maybe it can be done. But equality with dirt and gold, how can this be? How can this be possible, to see dirt and gold with equal vision? So maybe I can ask you guys, what do you guys think? How can you see dirt and gold at equal levels? Is there any guesses? Maybe you can just let it sit, think about it for a second. Yeah, Bibanshu?
They both come from earth.
Mm.
Like they have the same, like the source is the same.
Right. Yeah, you also had one?
Yeah, I mean, if you grew up without knowing the value of gold, the gold would just be shiny, but then the dirt could be more valuable. Like you could build stuff with it, like if you live in a village and stuff. So you could, if you grew up in a village and you use dirt to build your houses and everything, and then like 20 years down the line you find out that gold is really meaningful and you've had a lot of it, and now with that perception you can, it's almost like equal, you know, your perception about those two are equal, because one of them is really useful and the other one you just found out is like worth a lot.
Right, so they both come from earth, and you can like build with it as well.
Right.
I asked this question to my spiritual teacher, and he gave a really nice answer. He said that, of course, when we see dirt and gold, we obviously see the amazement in gold, and dirt we just kind of disregard. But if you think about it, without dirt, you can't even plant any seeds, and you can't even grow any trees to grow fruits and vegetables to fuel you to even enjoy the gold. So that's how you can see it on equal levels, because everything has its purpose, whether it's dirt or gold. Like I was doing some research recently on the honeybee, and they were saying how if the honeybee did not exist, then this whole human civilization would not exist, because the honeybee goes from flower to flower to cross-pollinate, and it's because of that cross-pollination that we have nuts and seeds and fruits and vegetables and trees. So just like that, just this little insect can do so much, and in the same way dirt can do so much. Everything has its value. This reminds me of this story. So as a monk, what I like to do is something called book distribution, where I go to different colleges and music festivals to try to give out spiritual knowledge to people. And actually a few people here that I've given books to, they've kind of joined. Maybe I can shout out Brisa real quick. I met her at USC, I gave her a book, and now she's like such an integral part of this community, and she's starting her own communities and just branching out, and it all just came from a book. So sometimes with this book distribution, I feel like I'm spiritual fishing. Like I'm just trying to like look for the goldfish, and they come. So when I do this book distribution, I had a mentor who I would go out with every single day. He's a 70-year-old monk. He's been practicing the lifestyle of a monk for 50 years. So I would get the opportunity of just sitting in the passenger seat with him. he would share all his wisdom and reflections and realizations, and I feel like I've really learned so much from him, like how to apply spirituality on a practical level. And he also has this adventurous side to him as well. So I remember one time we went to this university, and the place where we had to go was blocked off, and there was a big sign that said service workers only. So he looked at me and he was like, you know, we're doing service, right? I'm like, yeah, we're doing service. And then he's like, and we're working too, right? I'm like, yeah, we're working also. He's like, so we're service workers? I'm like, yeah, we're service workers. And he's like, all right, let's go. And he just put the pedal to the metal, and we just like went through the sign and set up our table. And yeah, it was like really cool. Just met so many people. But on another occasion, which brings me back to this equality point, I remember one time we were unloading these boxes out of the car. And my mentor, he likes to be very hands-on. He doesn't like help so much. He feels like it's his physical exercise at that point to do these unloading of the boxes. So I'm trying to help him, but he's like, no, I got it. So he's unloading these boxes. And all of a sudden I see this bird. So it kind of distracted me. So I'm looking like the other way. And I'm looking at this bird. And all of a sudden I hear this super loud scream coming from my mentor. And in my head, I'm immediately thinking, okay, he's 70 years old, he just pulled his back, we're about to go to the hospital, like it's about to get really serious. And so as I'm turning around to see him, and I see him physically, he looks actually fine, like nothing happened, but his face looks so depressed. And he just like stops everything and just like sits down. And I'm like asking him, like, what happened? Are you okay? And he's like, I just put this box on an ant, and I squished it. And he was feeling so sad about that. So I was just thinking, like, wow, that's like real spiritual advancement to see with equality in such a way. And we can see why it's important to have this equal vision, because it's missing right now from this world. We have these things like slaughterhouses, which are really polluting and damaging the world, damaging our bodies, damaging the environment, and ultimately hurting and damaging these animals. It's like a lose-lose-lose situation. And because this equal vision is missing, we go through these things. I actually had a chance to go to a slaughterhouse. They have one in LA called Farmer John's. And have any of you guys been to that one? Yes, a few people. So what they do is on Sunday nights, there's a lot of activists there. And the activists have kind of made deals with the police that, look, we're not going to cause trouble, we're not going to cause disturbance. We just want to be here to comfort the animals as they're coming. Because every Sunday night, about 3,000 baby pigs come, and within a few hours they're all slaughtered. So as the trucks are coming, we all surround the trucks, and then we begin comforting these animals. We feed them water, we just talk to them, and we know their faith, and I can really feel that they also know their faith as well. So we can see how sentient they actually are. And when I went to this slaughterhouse, I took a friend with me, and afterwards I asked him, what was your experience? How did you feel? And he said that it was no different than seeing a Holocaust, to have all these living beings in such a close environment and seeing them suffer. So if we can have this equal vision, then we can really help progress this world in great ways. We try to implement this mood of compassion as much as possible. And so living as a monk for maybe 5 to 6 years now, I felt like, I want to give other people this opportunity and see what it's like. But I know that it's very hard to just let go of everything and to just live in an ashram. So I started a website called beamonk.org. where you can fill out an application and you can live in a temple for 3 days. So our slogan was, "You can be a monk till Monday." And we got like so many applications from all over the world. People were sending them in, and we started taking them in. It was amazing. You can see the life-changing experiences people were having. But what happened was, there was this one kid named Jonathan. Jonathan is from Ohio, and he got into this gnarly fight with his parents, and he just couldn't take it anymore. So he packed all of his belongings in his little Chevy car and drove his car from Ohio, which is like near New York, all the way to LA, and ended up at the temple doorstep. And I don't know, when he arrived, something in me just made me feel like I want to give this person a chance. I want to give him an opportunity. Usually you got to go through this whole application process and whatnot, but I just saw that there's something special about him. And it turned out that he was actually extremely autistic. He had bipolar syndrome, and anytime you would ask him a question, he would just respond with one word and look at the floor. So I took him to my temple president. I said, "Look, he didn't fill out the application. We didn't do any background checks, but I'm gonna take him under my wing. Let's just give him a shot." So my temple president agreed. We got him a space, and I started bringing him out to all of my activities, whether it was feeding homeless people or going and distributing meditation books. I just kind of took him by my side. And at first it was really tough. He had like a lot of walls and layers, and I was trying to like break into him little by little. And then one day, we were driving back, and I just asked him, "Hey, so how you feeling?" And he kind of stopped, and he said, "No one has ever asked me before, how am I feeling?" And that really impacted him greatly. So I can see that he was starting to lessen his walls. And then I really wanted to just like break open the gates. So one time, again, as we were coming back, I had a joke I wanted to tell him. So I'm like, "Hey Jonathan, why did the whale spit out the clown?" And he was thinking about it. Why did the whale spit out the clown? And then I said, "Because he tasted funny." And he just like laughed and laughed and laughed. And after that, we just like hit it off. We became really cool. We were just becoming really good friends. And one day he goes out to Hollywood. He comes back and he gives me this keychain that says "My best friend," and he gives it to me. And then he has a matching one. And he says, "I hope that you always have this and I'll always have mine, and that you're my best friend." And even like little things, like sometimes I'll be walking to the car and he will like jump out of the car and like open the door. And I'm like, "Jonathan, you don't gotta do that." But he's like, "No, please sit." And I remember even one time we were driving and I just started like coughing a little. And he's like, "Oh no, your asthma's acting up." And he like shuts down all the air conditioners, and we're on the freeway and he like pulls over. He's like, "Are you okay? Are you alright?" So I can see that this person, some love, some attention, he might be labeled as something else from the outside, but if we have this equal vision, we can bring compassion out of anybody. And I wanted to know a little bit more about Jonathan's life. So one day I started asking him, "Tell me a little bit about your life." And he started revealing, and he said that when I was young, my parents, they would go out and leave me home alone, and they would get really drunk, and then they would come back, and then they would beat me for no reason and lock me in a closet. And I was like, "Man, that's pretty rough." And then he started to also say that the pastors and priests of his church, they would abuse him as well. And he also was saying how he tried to tell people, he tried to tell his uncles, his family members, his teachers, but nobody would believe him. So I was thinking, like, okay, Jonathan, like, let's say we had a time machine and you can go back and you can change something about this whole situation. What is it that you would change? And he said nothing. There's nothing I would change because there was nothing I can do. I was just a kid and I tried like everything. I tried everything I could, but you know, that's all I could do at the time. So then I asked him another question. I'm like, okay, Jonathan, let's say there's another kid right now that's going through the same exact thing that you're going through. What can we do for that kid? And he got really passionate. And he said, we have to listen to the kids. We have to stand up for the kids because it's the kids that tell the truth and it's the adults that lie. Mm-hmm. And you know, I just kind of had a moment. I was moved because I'm working on a project right now that deals with empowering children. But I was just thinking, like, this is the actual problem, the root problem of what's going on in this world. It's this superiority complex. When adults think that they're more superior to children, when one particular religion thinks they're superior to another religion, when one particular gender thinks they're superior to another gender, or one skin color thinks they're superior to another skin color. It's where all the problems are starting. And the opposite to the superiority complex is to have this equal vision and to learn to see every living entity with spiritual vision, to see that spiritual spark. We're all emanating from the same source. And if we can have this vision, then we can truly do great and wondrous things in this world. So I'm just encouraging that vision today, more so, and hopefully we can come together and do powerful things in this world. Thank you very much.